but that was before the amendment was done. They're going to reinsert.
I knew you would have left that.
Oh no, I said like George Washington originally.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, George Washington was like that was the first.
No, you said we were 12.5%.
All right. If you guys have finished it, that's all right. We're going to start on over this. All right. Let's start with. I'm going to be looking for volunteers. Tell me some of the roles of the. We'll start with the executive branch. Doug.
He's commander-in-chief.
Commander-in-chief. What does that mean?
He runs the Army and the Navy. Well, at this time. Now we have like the Air Force and stuff.
Right. Okay. Very good. What else? What else is the president? Harrison.
Veto.
Veto. So veto. What do you veto?
Like the bills that are passed in Congress.
Exactly right. So he can veto. Sure. What else can he do?
Have the power to be
Make treaties. Very good. What else?
Execute laws.
Harrison.
He's the only one who can like fire a nuke. I know that.
So,
He gives authorization.
well, he has launch codes, so that's a big deal, right? That was a big thing they talked about last night in the debate. That was interesting.
Oh yeah, that
He has the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States.
He can pardon people. Very good. Has anyone ever heard of an example where the president pardoned somebody and might have been controversial?
Gerald Ford and Richard Nixon.
Yeah, very good. Exactly. So President Ford, one of the first things he did when he was into office after President Nixon resigned after the Watergate scandal was he pardoned Nixon, which was very controversial, right? What else can the president do? Anything else that we heard?
They can just pardon
Don't they like
Well,
always pardon someone right before they?
There's a lot of strategy behind it. Like you're not going to just pardon somebody, that might have just
No, but
got convicted for murder. That would be unethical. The president, bless you.
Who's gonna stop him? Not me.
There will be ways to check that. In a point. Yes. Any other powers to the executive branch?
He appoints, or he or she appoints judges of Supreme Court.
Very good. Let's talk about this for a second. All right, nominate Supreme Court justices. So, like Mr. Brown said, the first topic last night on the debate, which I got pretty pumped about because it was directed. I know it's kind of funny to say, but I was pumped. I was like, this is exactly what we're talking about in class, right? The president can nominate Supreme Court justices. All right, what is the significance of this?
It's gonna happen this time. That means that he just says like certain laws. He picks your boy that knows like he's gonna.
This will change.
So the Supreme Court makes laws?
No, the Supreme Court. He knows they're gonna like pass some certain.
Yeah, like
One
they
thing for fun. Joey, what do you think?
All right, so like for like they had that thing like the Supreme Court ruling for like gay rights. Say like one president was against it, he might like select like if that was still going on, he might try to select like a judge that he knew would like rule unconstitutional.
Right, exactly, right? So, president, they're going to try to get people into the Supreme Court that kind of share their more kind of views, right? The way they're good, because the judicial court, as we're going to talk about, they interpret laws, right? So they're able to rule on laws and determine if they're constitutional or not, right? So if a president can get somebody who aligns with their political party more, they can get more things done through the Supreme Court, right? So a judge recently passed away, Scalia, Anton Scalia, right? And he was more conservative judge, right? So now the next president, depending on what political party they're in, might pick a more liberal judge if Hillary Clinton wins, a more conservative judge if Donald Trump wins. And there might be more than one judge that either retires or passes away, right? There's definitely going to be one. The moderator last night, Chris Matthews, talked about how there might be 2 or 3. So there's 9 total Supreme Court justices. So if this next president nominates 3 of them, that's a huge swing, right?
That's bad.
That's a huge swing that can happen for the Supreme Court and the way they interpret laws, right? So it's very important what they establish in the Constitution, what you're reading right there in front of you, still plays a major role today, all right? So let's talk about the legislative branch. All right, what are some of the rules of the legislative branch? There's a lot of them, so... What was it?
Proposed laws.
Proposed laws. What else? Just shout them out to me.
Taxes.
Taxes, right? That's important. What else?
Coin money.
Coin money. Why is that important, especially at this time when we're talking about in the United States at the Articles of Confederation?
They're like, what do we do? Inflation rates.
Well, there's inflation, but each state has their own what?
Currency.
Right, so how do you, when you go across state borders, if you do, what do you do with your money?
You gotta like transfer.
Right, it's all kind of messy, right? So there's going to be one unified monetary system, right, underneath the Constitution. What else can the legislative branch do? I heard a big one.
Declare war.
They declare war, right? A lot of people think the president declares war. He has to ask for permission, right? And that permission comes from Congress, all right? What else? Regulate commerce, right? Like we just talked about in the slides. What else? There's more than that. Come on.
Oh, they definitely established post offices and post roads.
Post offices and post roads, right? Post office is still around today, although some people think maybe not for much longer, but it's still around today through the legislative branch, right? Any other important roles of the legislative branch? Anything? Anything we missed? They just-
Constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court.
What? I couldn't. What?
To constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Yeah, they're wrong. Nice try.
What else? Anything else? They can raise, support army, right? Very good. So the president's in charge of the army, but they can raise the army. Anything else?
Tribunal? It's definitely
Good? All right. Let's move on to the judicial branch. All right. So the judicial branch, a lot smaller section that you guys had in front of you. What is like the main power or main role, responsibility of the judicial branch?
determine if laws are constitutional.
Exactly. Constitutional. So this, again, to bring up the debate again from last night, moderator Chris Matthews asked the president how they would hope that the Constitution is interpreted, all right? Is it a living, breathing document that changes as we go along, or is it intended to be interpreted based on how the Founding Fathers wrote it at that time in the late 1780s, right, into the 1790s, right? So there's that whole debate on whether or not it should change with the times, or if the right to bear arms means the right to bear arms, and that it should stay the way the Founding Fathers intended, all right? So these are important issues that come up time and time again, right? Especially around election season, okay? So it's all about how the president might want their laws determined and how they want the Constitution determined, right? What else does the judicial branch do? They can declare laws constitutional or unconstitutional. What else?
They do the impeachment thing.
What about?
They do the impeachment process.
Okay, right? So
Judge on it.
Why do they
trials,
actually
right?
wear dumb outfits like this? 2016.
Which branch can impeach? Which president or which branch can impeach the president? Oh, you guys didn't catch up. Congress, right?
Congress part.
Should I just become the president?
Yes.
How old do you have to be to become president?
35.
35, right? 14 years. I think you're a little short.
We'll just throw a military coup.
No, you're a little short.
Don't talk like that. I don't know. You don't know who might be hearing that. All right, so good. You guys have the good balances of power, what each branch can do. All right, so now we're going to finish that crash course video. And Craig, our buddy, is going to get, Craig, he's going to get really wild now. He's going to really kind of, he's going to up his shtick a little bit. That's about his shtick way better. All right. So what I want you guys to do now is, throughout this video, there's about 5 minutes left. He's going to talk about checks and balances, all right? He's going to talk about the ways that each branch can check each other, all right? Because as we might get time to read to, James Madison talks about this whole idea of checks and balances and the fact that angels do not govern the United States. What does that mean? Anyone think they know what that means? Angels do not govern the United States, paraphrasing. What do you think he meant by that, James Madison?
Like, people aren't
He's like,
perfect.
People aren't
we're
perfect,
savages
right?
out here.
What can happen? Like as the colonists contended against King George, what did they declare he became? A tyrant, right? So Angels don't lead the government. If angels led the United States government, there would be no need for checks and balances because we wouldn't have to worry about tyrants, right? But man and now women, they govern the government, right? So there needs to be things in place to check them to prevent tyranny, okay? So I want you guys to listen closely. He talks very fast and weirdly. But I want you guys to write down some of the checks and balances that each branch has. You can write it where those arrows are, or you can just write it on the back of your sheet. Just try to get some of them down and then we'll talk about it. And then we're going to move on.
This is gonna be a big cringe, isn't it?
Yeah, but try to move past it, all right?
Move past it and gain and
Exactly,
look for the
yeah.
higher pursuit of knowledge that you come here
I was just wondering.
in search
Oh
of.
no, it's not really her. Like, she's normal. It's like the other.
This one?
Yeah, like you're like really small.
All right. Shh.
Yeah, that was a segue right into it. Nice job by me. I'm gonna need a little help explaining checks and balances, so let's do that part in the clone zone. Checks and balances is a confusing term because it implies two things, but really it would be better to think of them as checks that balance, although that might be confusing to people who actually try to balance their checkbooks. Anyway, the point here is that each of the branches has the power to limit or check the other two, and this creates a balance between the three separate powers. In the same way that the Constitution lays out the legislature in the greatest detail, it also gives the legislature the greatest number of checks on the other branches. Legislative clown? So the framers of the Constitution were really concerned about the president becoming a tyrannical figure a la King George III. That guy was a jerk. So the Constitution gives the legislature a lot of power over the executive. The House of Representatives can impeach the president. Then the Senate can remove the president from office, but only if 2/3 of the senators vote for impeachment. The Senate can also check the president's appointment of judges and officials by rejecting them. This is known as advice and consent. Either branch of Congress can investigate executive activities and officers. If the president vetoes a law, Congress, with a 2/3 vote in both houses, can override the veto. Congress can also refuse to pass laws that the executive wants, and probably most important, they can refuse to appropriate funds for executive programs. You might think that since the judiciary is the third and presumably least important branch, Congress would have fewer checks on it, but that would be wrong. Here are the ways that the legislative branch can limit the judicial branch. Congress can impeach and remove judges as it can do with the president. Congress can be a bunch of jerks sometimes. That's me. The Senate can reject judicial nominees, which is a check on judges before they even get there. Congress can change the federal court system by adding or taking away courts, like it says in Article 3. And it can change the jurisdiction of federal courts. Congress can pass new laws that override Supreme Court decisions, as long as the decisions aren't based on the Constitution. Don't want to do that. No. And as a very last super drastic resort, Congress can propose amendments to the Constitution as it did with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, overruling the Dred Scott decision. Wow, legislative clone. It looks like the framers were so scared about an all-powerful super president that they gave Congress most of the power. Executive clone? You know what? I'll be executive clone since I'm basically president of the clones. The executive branch can check the legislature in the following ways. The president can veto Congress's laws so that they don't go into effect. The president can call Congress into special session, but he can't make them pass new laws. The executive branch carries out the laws and may do so in ways that are contrary to what Congress wanted. Although this rarely happens, the vice president is given the power to break ties in the Senate, which is one of his only real powers other than embarrassing the president. The president nominates Supreme Court justices, and this can change the way the court works. He also nominates federal court judges, and this shapes the entire court system. The president can pardon people convicted by the courts, which cancels out their judgments. The president can also, in his capacity to carry out the laws, refuse to carry out court decisions. So you can see that even with the number of checks that it has, the executive branch is weaker than the legislature. But not as weak as the judiciary branch.
No!
Political scientists consider the judiciary the weakest branch because without legislative and executive action, it doesn't have a whole lot to do. Being the weakest branch, the judiciary also has the fewest checks on the other two branches. Here's what it can do. The judiciary checks the legislature by declaring its laws unconstitutional. The Chief Justice presides over impeachment trials, and sometimes he gets to wear a special robe when this happens. Perk of the job. It's a perk of the job. It's really nice. And the judiciary checks the executive branch by declaring executive acts unconstitutional. A really good example of this was Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company versus Sawyer. Super important case. Look it up. Look it up. The court also issues warrants in federal crime cases, and again presides over impeachment trials in the Senate. But the big check that the courts have is invalidating